question. Ladies and gentlemen, why is it Ukraine and not Ukraine? What should we lead with, Don Lemon or Warsh? Remember, this program's based on the Network News Division's morning meeting. So some mornings like this, I ask myself, the Twitter poll that I did, the X poll, more of you would like me to lead here with Don Lemon. But I said, what would they lead with in a morning meeting, a real morning meeting? And the answer is they'd lead with Don Lemon, and they'd review the facts, which is Don Lemon was apparently arrested last night in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammys. Larry says he was probably at a party covering the Grammys. He's hired notable, famed DC lawyer Abby Lowell to represent him. He'd already hired him, but Abby put out a statement this morning, and apparently he may have a court appearance today. This all pertains back to the church appearance that he made in Minnesota that was considered very controversial. Trying to use neutral language.
Little church popping.
You'll recall that a magistrate, a federal magistrate, declined to issue an arrest warrant last week when they wanted to arrest him, but somehow they went back somehow, and now they arrested him in L.A. And of course, Don will turn all this into spectacular content. Do we know what the charges are? Does anybody know what the charges are?
The charge is conspiracy to deprive rights in the
conspiracy to deprive rights. If that's a crime, I love too much. Guys, initial thoughts. Here's the New York Times headline. Again, this is just breaking. There's
comfort straight leg pain
everywhere. But federal agents arrest Don Lemon over Minnesota church protest. Former CNN anchor has said he was not demonstrating but reporting as a journalist during the interruption of a service inside the church. There are people saying this is going to make him a martyr. It's exactly what Don Lemon will love, and he'll get a ton of content and more followers. But if it ends up with Don in prison, I don't think he'll like it as much. Kevin, just initial thoughts as we wait to learn more. We'll probably come back to this later in the program.
Yeah, I think nobody wants to be arrested. I think some reports are that he spent some time in a LA jail overnight after being arrested late last night in Beverly Hills. But again, this, to your point, Mark, this is what Don's life has become. You know, he kind of ran into some of those congressional offices earlier last year, you know, kind of hoodwinking folks and kind of this man on the street element. So this is a great thing for him that all the leading networks, I'm watching them right now, most of them are talking about this right now, leading off, at least on CNN, obviously.
Surprisingly, Fox is the only one not covering it right now. I would think they'd be super into it. CNN,
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
They will. CNN, very smartly, I'm jealous, has a phoner with Allison Camerata, Don's fellow Substacker and former morning show host. We'll have to eavesdrop on that.
Interviewed him right before this, too.
Correct.
She was just talking about that.
Because they couldn't get Jennifer Rubin. That's why.
Larry, initial thoughts on the Lemon arrest?
I'm surprised because I predicted this would not happen, and I'll just say no one is above the law, and let's leave it.
It's
Actually, I'll add to that. I saw too many pro-life conservatives who were arrested during the Biden administration for simply praying in front of a Planned Parenthood location. This could very well be the same face law that has language about intruding and impeding people at their place of worship, and it is gratifying to see this law being applied in this way.
It's interesting to see. This case will be a spectacle because it involves Don and the president, and Don will spar, and again, Don's Substack will explode. But there's this question of who is a journalist. You know, can you go do things that if you weren't a quote unquote journalist, you'd be arrested, but say, well, I'm a journalist, because anybody with a Twitter account can say they're a journalist, you know, by some definition. So there are some substantive questions here. We'll come back to Don, I bet. And again, if people have questions, and as always on a morning like this, we love the community help crowdsource. Send us the videos you see, whatever information you see, put it in the chat or send it directly to me, and we'll keep everybody up to date. Kevin Warsh, the president, went on Truth Social this morning, made it official that Warsh will be announced. It'll probably be an event at the White House around 11, I'm told, but it could slip. But the president has an event currently on his schedule at 11, but this could become that event. Mr. Warsh is extremely popular with lots of people. Okay, lots of people are delighted by this. Condoleezza Rice on X, very favorable statement. I've been getting emails all morning from people I know who I didn't even know knew Kevin Warsh, saying he was my intern. He's a great guy. We love Kevin Warsh. Okay. CNBC this morning, here, Joe and Becky, here was their reaction to the selection.
I could argue a lot of different ways with Kevin Warsh. I would
think long term, he'd be really good for the stock market, but short term, we know what these traders like a lot of times, and he is a hawk. He has. You can dress up a hawk like a dove, maybe to get the job a little bit, and he's been a big critic of the Fed and calling for regime change. And
Kevin Warsh has experience at the Federal Reserve. He was there, I think, from 2006 maybe to 2011. He's got a lot of experience on Wall Street. He's been working with Stan Druckenmiller at Duquesne ever since he left the Fed. And again, the idea of hoping that inflation doesn't get out of play. It may not feed into the president's immediate desire for affordability, but if inflation goes up, everybody will.
And I'm gratified that he's picking Warsh at this point. It shows that when push comes to shove, and you can, what was it? Was it said that Churchill said, he was talking about the United States, we try everything else, and then we finally come to the right decision after we've tried everything else. But I think it's gratifying that President Trump probably knows sometimes, the castor oil or whatever it is that you got to take to make things better, it's not always pleasant. It's not always...
Can I just add to this? There was a little bit of force. We still don't know if even Kevin Warsh would be confirmed by the Senate.
So there's all sorts of elements to this story. We always try to be forward-looking here, but there are some backward things we're going to talk about that speak to the president's decision-making, to speak to what kind of Fed chair Warsh will be if he is confirmed. I said lots of people like him, okay? His father-in-law, for instance, likes him quite a bit and is a friend of the president's, and he has many friends, many people, including, I believe, David Bahnsen, thinks of all the people who are considered Warsh as the best choice. But there are people in my life, in finance, who think he was the worst choice. And my bro chat group, my business bro chat group, they think this is a disaster. They look at what happened overnight in world markets and they say the reason it's not down even more is because there's stuff happening like the deal over ICE that are buoying markets because there won't be a shutdown probably. So with that prelude and I have a million more things to say about this. David Bahnsen of the Bahnsen Group, our friend, and he and I have been in colloquy about the Fed pick for quite some time. This is a pick the president could have made 3 months ago when he said he wanted to make a pick. Warsh was on the table. David, is this the right pick for the president? Is it the right pick for the country? Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark. I believe on both counts it is. I'm disappointed you showed all the CNBC footage and didn't show their first guest this morning, who is there to talk about Kevin Warsh. But what I said on Joe and Becky's show, I'll say to you all, is, first of all, my advocacy of Kevin Warsh is based on him being a candidate. If I had a magic wand and could make a list out of anything I wanted, I can think of a few people that were never going to be candidates that I may have liked. But I know who the serious candidates were. And Warsh is, to me, far and away the most qualified, the most credible. And we have to remember this term is longer than President Trump's presidential term. So there's not only the immediate short-term aspects, but longer term. I believe somebody who has the intellectual gravitas he had to point out so presciently what the downside to quantitative easing, to QE, to the fact that in our adult lifetimes, we have watched the Fed's balance sheet go up by $7 trillion, and that could not be done without trade-offs. Warsh, there's another former Fed governor, Tom Honig, who used to call it out too. But other than that, they're the only ones. I respect Kevin a great deal. He was the economist at Morgan Stanley when I was managing director there for years. I do not believe that the markets have any problem with Kevin whatsoever. I don't believe there's any serious person saying that markets are going to respond negatively to Kevin Warsh. I think it's almost a laughable idea.
Okay, this is a
with
great...
With the 10-year bond yield up 2 basis points.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Larry for questions. I'll just say, David, with respect, I respect you. Of course, I have serious people in my life who have said when Warsh's name was floated to the top of the rumor mill earlier in the process, they say markets took a hit, and they say in their world, traders and all sorts of people in finance, he's the worst possible pick. They just think he's got no credibility. They don't think he's going to do what needs to be done in the job. I'm just telling you, I'm not going to compare their seriousness as people to yours, but they're serious people. So as a layperson, I'm just a little confused. But Larry's colloquy with you will clear this up. Larry.
Will it? Well, I'm interested in what I'm seeing from the crypto bros on social media. Apparently, and I don't know this firsthand, maybe you do, he's really open to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which is not necessarily what we've seen from the Fed up until now. Do you think that could have been a factor in this decision, and how will it affect how he does his job?
I don't think so. I do know what you're referring to. And I don't say this as a dig on Kevin. I say it as a pragmatic comment about the moment. I think that people who have campaigned for this job have had to take a certain posture that would enable them to get the job. Bitcoin's down over $1,000 this morning. Bitcoin is almost 95% correlation to tech stocks. And that is the entirety of what's going on now. You have Apple, Amazon down this morning. Microsoft was down 10% yesterday. Bitcoin is more correlated to speculative side. There's not much Kevin or the Fed, period, could do to benefit that aspect. I think, Larry, your question is more, will the Fed take a posture that has a more regulatory friendly environment with crypto? But I don't think that there's been anything hostile done to crypto all year, and it's down 30% over the last several months. So the administration has a favorable viewpoint there. But no, I think that Kevin's view has more to do with what the Fed's role in the economy is. When he talks about structural reform, he's not talking about this ridiculous stuff about the cost overruns on a building. He's talking about the fact that the Fed has taken a posture where they become a liquidity provider too quickly. And I think that that's the most important element long-term for structural benefits to Fed. Where that will fit into crypto and so forth, I think it's tough to say.
Kevin.
David, can you take us into the final weeks of this decision making? Again, Mark said, his name was floated 4 or 5 months ago. Stock market took a little bit of a hit, but it seemed like in the last 2 weeks, he really skyrocketed to the front of the line from a pressure campaign. I wonder how much you have insight into Scott Bessent's role in this too. Obviously, they have a shared connection with Druckenmiller. As a protege they're both of him. So I wonder how much this pressure campaign inside and outside of the administration actually sealed the deal for Kevin.
There's some stuff I do know that I shouldn't say regarding the secretary's involvement, but there's some stuff that
it's just the 4 of us on two-way. So just share whatever insight you have.
That's right. Look, what I will say is that I believe it's public knowledge that Secretary Bessent did not want to be the person who made the call, that it was important to him to set this up in a way that the president owned the pick. And my own opinion is that the president has been a little unfair to Secretary Mnuchin about the pick of Jerome Powell, that the President Trump made that pick and then regretted it, and everyone's allowed to regret a pick they make. But to put the blame on the former Treasury Secretary, I think, is Monday morning quarterbacking. And I think that Secretary Bessent has done this in a way that President Trump owns this pick. And I think President Trump's going to be happy he owns this pick. My own personal opinion, I don't know that Mark will agree with me, but I feel very strongly about this for a variety of reasons. I think it is laughable that Rick Reeder was ever discussed as a serious candidate. I think that there was no point at which markets sold off at the idea of Kevin Warsh. He wasn't even the first place candidate in prediction markets until the day which is only a few weeks ago, that President Trump said Kevin Hassett needs to stay at NEC. The sequence of events as to President Trump saying in 2020, I should have picked you, Kevin, when he picked Powell, and then, the idea that he could have done a shadow Fed earlier, I just don't think I agree with my favorite political prognosticator and friend, Mark, that President Trump passed him up. I believe that what he did was pass up the strategy of having a shadow Fed, that he thought that was going to end up being problematic. And I think he made the right decision. And I do think Secretary Bessent was a part of that as well. But no, look, Secretary Bessent did not pressure the president to pick Kevin Warsh. But I do think he has done this in a way that he allowed President Trump to make that pick on his own.
I agree with 70% of what David said, and I'll do my best to say where I disagree respectfully. But I need to read you two tweets coming from Team Trump about the arrest of Don Lemon. First, the Attorney General moments ago on X. At my direction early this morning, federal agents arrested Don Lemon, and then she lists 4 other people who I haven't heard of, but I assume so the people in the church, in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. More details soon. So that tweet's pretty straightforward. Here's a more cryptic one. We'll put this up. This is from James Blair, the White House deputy chief of staff. He basically runs politics for the White House. He's one tough hombre, James Blair. Here's what he tweeted. A federal grand jury indicted Don Lemon. He was not just magically arrested. A federal grand jury indicted Don Lemon. He was not just magically arrested. And then he writes the same thing again. If you're watching on the podcast, if you're listening on the podcast, I'm not repeating myself. James Blair is. His tweet is the same 3 sentences, pairs of sentences over and over. A federal grand jury indicted Don Lemon. He was not just magically arrested. Pass it on. Larry, you're a Blair whisperer. Is he making the point that this was done through the normal channels of a grand jury and not political retribution of Pam Bondi and Donald Trump?
Correct. I suspect that he's responding to some commentary he's probably seeing on the usual suspect cable news shows right now, who are saying that this is the Trump administration using the law, lawfare, going after political enemies. And I think he's responding saying this isn't just an arrest of somebody we don't like. A grand jury indicted him. A grand jury indicted him. That's my hunch.
Yeah. All right. Let me say a few things about Warsh. I'll try to be brief. I'll probably do more of this online. I'm not saying this is a negative about Warsh. And again, even as this program has been on the air and people have been listening to me talk about Warsh, I'm still getting messages from people about what a great guy this is, how much they like him. He knows so many people. He's so well connected, okay? And genius, youngest member of the Fed board ever, et cetera. I will tell you that let's say quickly, let's say Hogan Gidley wants to be the permanent host of this program. He could just come on and try to do a good job and see how it goes, or he could start sending emails to me saying, "Hey, Kevin is not that nice a guy, and Larry's got gambling debts," and trying to run down the other people, or rather than do it,
we got to FOIA those emails.
Yeah, or rather than do it himself, Kevin could or Hogan could say to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, his friend, "Hey, call Mark Halperin," or maybe Sarah by herself would say, "Hey, I really want Hogan to get this job." I am telling you, I am not a Fed reporter. I'm not an advisor to the president, but I was besieged by people who wanted Kevin Warsh to get the job, sending me negative information about the other candidates. Okay, now that's a turtle on a fence post, folks. This guy is an aggressive political operator. He's scholarly. But there's a great story here about how he got the job, which speaks to his political sophistication. David, back to you in a second. Speaks to his political sophistication, his wide network, and his living in the real world, right? He is not Jay Powell, Mr. Magoo. This guy said, "I want to be Fed chair." His friend said, "We want him to be Fed chair. We're going to get it for him." And if it looks like he's going to pick Kevin, the other Kevin, we're going to take that guy down. If it looks like he's going to pick Rick, we're going to take that guy down. That's the way the world works in the real world. But I'm telling you, these other people who wanted to be Fed chair, they just acted like, well, I just need to go do a good interview with the president. David.
So last night I got a text from somebody who's very close with Kevin, who was economist in the Fed under a prior Fed governor. And that what you just shared, he told me specifically where it came from. That Kevin Warsh shared a story of him making the case to Ben Bernanke before QE about what the problems were, and that there were going to be trade-offs that we had not thought through, and him being thoroughly convinced that he had convinced Bernanke not to go forward. Then they arrive at the meeting, and Tim Geithner had called and made the case, and then Bernanke got 19 calls, much like you just described, from different people, all touting for QE. And the fix was in, and Bernanke went forward, and Warsh realized at that point, I don't get to get what I want or make my case just with persuasion. There's a benefit to this pile-on and creating a social network of persuasion. And so it's not a perfect comparison, Mark, but what you're describing, I think, was a learned behavior.
100%.
And I don't think Warsh had to do a whole lot there. Now, let me say, the candidates that had to get taken down were not hard to take down.
No, they weren't. But
okay.
No, they weren't. No,
Kevin
they weren't.
Hassett has been a closer friend of mine than Kevin Warsh for a long time. I've spoken with Kevin. We're colleagues together at National Review. Kevin Hassett has offended people like me traditional conservatives, Reaganite conservatives, far more than he's concerned to the Democrats in the Senate, just in terms of his flip-flopping around on trade and other issues.
Yep.
But the other piece on market credibility, and I'm not, Mark, you have sources or people texting. I mean, it is what it is. I'm just merely saying what markets have said and done. The concern about a Fed chair, if they thought he was, like Joe Kernan said, he's hawkish, is he's opposed to QE. But does anyone think President Trump is really putting someone on who's going to be hawkish about short-term interest rates? There's no possible way.
No possible way. Agree with that. Okay.
Longer term, I think it is about Fed reform. And that is a big issue that markets will like.
Yes. And again, it is not a turtle on the fence post that my Twitter feed is filled with famous and prominent people from politics and business saying what a great pick this is. That is not happening by accident, folks. Some of it might be organic, but I'm telling you, this guy is a very sophisticated operator, and it's part of why he got the job, but it's also part of why the president, I believe, had doubts about him and why he wasn't picked earlier. Larry.
David, can you maybe just sort of guess or predict what the Democrat opposition might be to this nomination during the confirmation process? What do you think they might hone in on?
Great question.
Yeah, it is a great question because I don't think they're going to have a lot. And more importantly, because the Republicans have the majority, I don't think the Tillises, Collins, McConnells are going to have much either, where I think that there are some candidates who would have a harder time. But I think the Democrats will just want to focus on, are you independent? Have you made a commitment to President Trump to do what he will say? And he'll answer it accordingly and say the right things. And then candidly, I think he'll do the right things as well. What we have here is a coincidence of alignment that Kevin Warsh does believe the same thing right now that President Trump wants. The rubber would hit the road if there was a difference, but there just isn't. But that's what the Dems are going to focus on, is whether or not he has independence.
All right, David, we're going to cover some other stuff. If you're able to stick around and take questions.
Can I ask David one more quick question
yes,
before
sir.
he goes?
Of course. Yes, sir.
David, do you think Jerome Powell stays on to 2028?
I don't, and I really hope I'm right, because I am reasonably defensive of Jay Powell. I think the way the White House has treated him is abominable. I definitely am critical of a lot of what he's done as Fed chair, but I think this pretextual lawfare stuff has been wrong, and the bullying. But if he were to stay, it is such a violation of norms and traditions. It's not a violation of the law. But if something has gone a certain way since 1948, I'm still a conservative who believes in conserving traditions. I'd like to see Powell step aside the way most of his predecessors have since the 1940s. So
David,
I hope he doesn't.
I need to ask you one more question. I need to ask you one more question. In the history of the modern Fed, what's been the closest working relationship between a Treasury Secretary and a Fed chair?
Oh, there's no question. It was Bernanke Paulson after the financial crisis.
Right, but that was a wartime. I'm talking about in peacetime.
But then the problem is, I would say Mnuchin and Powell are second close, and that was also wartime in the aftermath of COVID.
Right.
In peacetime, it would be Greenspan and Rubin. Yeah.
Greenspan and Rubin. Okay.
Well, for sure.
So I think, although a lot of their work was in the context of mini crises, right? But I'm predicting based on reporting that Bessent and Warsh, if Warsh is confirmed, are going to work very, very closely together. It's going to be a totally different institutional relationship.
Yeah, Greenspan, Rubin, and Warsh, Bessent is a good analogy. And you're right, you could say mini crisis, but I'm sorry, Mexican peso crisis now from the 90s in hindsight is small ball.
It's small ball, but at the time it seemed like a big deal.
Yeah.
David, if you can stay for questions later. Okay, great. So we'll mute David. We'll talk about some other stuff, and he'll be available to answer questions from folks when we get to the. Let me do a quick word from a sponsor, and then we're going to go back to some other topics. Right now, pajamas should be on your mind because Cozy Earth is making an extraordinary availability to viewers of this program or listeners to the podcast. Buy one, get one free of their pajama set, the bamboo pajama set. It's one of their best-selling items. It's a classic, and it's sold out over the holidays, but they're back in stock. And right now, with the promo code 2WMMBOGO, buy one, get one, you can get a second pair of the bamboo pajamas set for free right now, 2 for the price of 1. Show a little extra love this Valentine's Day. Give somebody pajamas. Flowers, chocolates, no, pajamas from Cozy Earth. And as I've said, if you've never bought anything from Cozy Earth and you don't recognize why so many members of our community come on here and talk about how revolutionary the towels, the sheets, the bubble cuddle blanket are, here's an opportunity to buy something and try out Cozy Earth for the first time. Go to CozyEarth.com, promo code 2WMM buy one, get one free, 2 of the bamboo pajama sets right now. Go to CozyEarth.com and buy them. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right, gentlemen, we have so many other topics to get to. I'm still looking for Don Lemon updates, but as of this moment, I don't see anything new. So let's move on to a new topic. And this is a complicated one because although there is an agreement between the Schumer Democrats and the White House and John Thune about how to proceed on a 2-week continuing resolution to give them a fortnight to try to work out what changes the Democrats are going to force on the Republicans regarding how ICE operates. They still have to get it through the Senate, and then they got to figure out what the House is going to do. People assume the president can muscle it through the House, but this is not a done deal. So, and it's interesting if you listen to Republicans reacting to the Democrats who have the whip hand right now to say there are going to be some changes. ICE is going to have to change its ways. Some Republicans have said, I've heard them say, and some have said to me, that you can't make them take off their masks. They have to wear masks because of doxing. Lindsey Graham, I saw, said, oh, well, of course we can have them take off their masks. So my point is there's going to be a big fight over this. Kevin, how do you see the next 2 weeks playing out? Assuming that, will they get to a continuing resolution? And then who will be at the table negotiating the ICE changes? Because the White House cares, and but House and Senate members of both parties care. So how will this all proceed?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's anyone's guess what those 2 weeks will look at. You mentioned Lindsey Graham, who threw a little something in the ointment yesterday. They're going to have a procedural vote again this morning. He's obviously upset about provisions about the wiretapping. I think he wants $500K out of this from our government, which would be the ceiling in terms of what he can recoup. But Mark, you make a good point in terms of what then happens in the House. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries has said, he's not providing any votes at this point. The Republicans got to do it on their own. It will be a question as to how much the president engages on that, obviously at the behest of Speaker Johnson to get his caucus across the line. When it comes to this, again, a caucus that now has a 1-vote threshold following the special coming out of Houston, Texas over the weekend. I think, Senator Britt, to your point in terms of who's going to be a point person, is the chair of the subcommittee on all this when it comes to ICE and Homeland Security funding for this particular agency. So she's going to be the point person. I think John Fetterman is likely involved. He's the ranking member on our side in the Senate. He has shown a willingness to really cross party lines, especially at this, getting a lot of grief from the left of my party for some of the stances that he has staked out, especially in the wake of the 2 shootings out of Minnesota. But again, 2 weeks is not a lot of time to figure out, some kind of semblance of a way to move forward. There is $20 million more dollars for body cams as part of this negotiation that has already been agreed upon. But I think, masks and the warrant question, to Larry's point earlier this week, are going to be the main stumbling blocks between a judicial warrant or an administrative warrant.
Yeah, Larry, the left is already criticizing Chuck Schumer, even though the negotiations haven't started, saying that he's giving in, and of course, many House Republicans will not accept anything. So how does this negotiation work? Is it Schumer and Trump make another deal and then they just try to jam the House?
Maybe, but try jamming this House. I mean, with the margins that Kevin was just talking about, I don't know. I mean, Speaker Johnson's been pretty impressive with being able to push things through.
We get mixed up all the time, me and Speaker Johnson.
Exactly. Well, there's too many Kevins in the news today. That's the problem. I don't think he's Superman. I don't think he can do that. First of all, there's 2 different steps here, right? We were right yesterday that the secret sauce is breaking off DHS and getting these other 5 appropriations bills passed. Lindsey Graham, as Kevin just mentioned, it's funny that this provision that senators can sue if they're surveilled is carving out this little niche protective self-serving group of senators where you and I don't have that same power. It's what House Republicans objected to. It's why they removed it. And here's Lindsey Graham basically playing right into the type, acting like this, stopping everything for it. I think that's going to go away. I think Thune's going to, and Trump will get on him. So the other 5 will go through. The way the DHS negotiation goes, I think, is really going to be the toughest part, as we're discussing. And I think what they'll end up doing is agreeing to body cams, agreeing to perhaps some cosmetic change in how they go about their business, but they can't hamper law enforcement.
Democrats will never agree to that.
Well,
they'll never agree
let's
to
see
that.
what. Then,
I mean,
maybe that's where
it has
have
been
the next-
amazing to see how well they've stuck together coming out of their caucus lunch this week.
Maybe
how
more
well
than
they've
they
stuck
want
together,
Zimmerman.
how well they've
subsidy.
stuck together, but
Subsidy.
also how that solidarity and the atmospherics and the polling have caused the White House and Thune to cave. Thune caved. Thune didn't want to break off the funding for DHS 2 days ago, and now he agreed to it. And it's clear that for the first time this year, I believe, Chuck Schumer has the whip hand. He's got it over the White House, and he's got it over Thune, and he's got it over Johnson. Right now, he does.
Kevin, does Ossoff vote to remove the mask from ICE agents?
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
Yes. Larry, that guy's to the left of AOC.
Yeah, but he's not running that way this year.
I'm not agreeing to that. We got to keep that seat. I'm not agreeing to that.
This year he's running like a Sam Nunn Georgian is what he's doing.
Look out, Rashida! Here comes John Ossa. No.
Let me do the day book real quick because I didn't. And then I'll tell you how we're going to spend the rest of our time together today. The president's schedule. Again, he's got a closed press event scheduled now for 11 sign executive orders, but I'm told that may become the slot in which he announces Warsh at the White House. If you're not familiar with what Warsh looks like, he's got hella good hair. The president, in a statement this morning, said he's from Central Casting, and it's going to be interesting to see what he says. Moments ago, Senator Tillis, who previously had said he would block any Fed nominee until the Powell legal matter is cleared up, reaffirmed that's his position after praising Warsh in a tweet. He said, I'm still not moving forward with him until the Powell thing's cleared up. But I think all that's going to happen is Pura is going to come out and say the Powell thing's cleared up. President at 2 has a policy meeting, closed press. As far as we can tell, staying in town this week, despite the cold, or maybe because of it. No idea what the vice president's doing. Tulsi Gabbard's at the winter gathering of the National Association of Secretaries of State amid continuing confusion about her involvement in the Georgia investigation of the 2020 election. The House remains out. And the Senate continues to grapple with what they're grappling. My friend Ann Seltzer is in court today at 10. I don't know if she'll be there, but her case in Iowa State Court, when the president's lawsuit against her for doing a bad poll, one of the most extraordinary of Donald Trump's lawsuits ever, has a hearing today. Mangione is in court here in New York. Luigi Mangione at 11. Governor Shapiro at 11 is doing an economic development event, and I would say that's about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw some topics off the sled because I want to get to your questions because I know folks have a lot, and we've got Kevin and Larry and David here to answer any Fed questions. So let's do a few more topics. Iran, the president continues to talk tough, and there continue to be assets in the region. Guys, just taking your daily temperature. Do you think we'll see a strike in the next 72 hours before we reconvene? Larry?
72 hours? No.
No. Kevin, strike before Monday?
Potentially, again, with the amount of hardware that's moving in there, 30 to 40,000 troops, all the aircraft that struck those nuclear sites earlier is actually now carrier-based in the Indian Ocean. So
here's the New York Times headline. Trump weighs new military options against Iran. The plans being weighed by the president go beyond those he considered weeks ago amid widespread protest against Iran's government. This story, which has David Sanger's byline on it, which always is a flag to me to take it very seriously, says two things. One is that the strikes or whatever action might be taken is intended both to degrade the nuclear capability and to encourage protesters. Now, it seems nuts to me that the U.S. would think that doing some bombing or whatever it is could get the protesters back in the street. And if they say that as a goal and that doesn't happen, that doesn't seem to me to be good optics. But it also says that the Pentagon has suggested ground operations. Now, that's probably just the Pentagon making suggestions. I can't imagine that'll happen, but that seems kind of extraordinary. On Ukraine, talks this weekend in the Middle East. Washington Post is a very important story. Remember, the two big issues pending are what security guarantees the West will give Ukraine and what land Ukraine will cede to Russia. Yesterday, the Washington Post covered this. I didn't see it very many other places. Russia's top diplomat, this is the Post headline, rejects key part of deal to end war with Ukraine. Rubio and Zelensky have both publicly said this week, basically, the security guaranteed portion is done. The Russians are basically saying no. And they've said this in the past, that a security guarantee is unlikely to ensure lasting peace. The Russians are against anything that bolsters Ukraine defense with Western troops, with American forces or European forces. So this goes to the notion that not only is Zelensky going to be hardline on the what the West considers the outstanding piece, which is territory, but that he's also going to be hardline on this. And if he is hardline on both, there will be no deal. Other thing that says in the Post story, which I didn't know, is that according to the story, the Russians are sending very junior people to this weekend's negotiations. And this deal is going to have to be done by heads of government eventually, but it's got to be teed up by more senior people. So, Larry, bullish or bearish today in the wake of the Russian foreign minister's statements about a possible deal?
I'm back to bearish.
Yeah.
And by the way, also, didn't that article also say that they're demanding Zelensky step down? They need new leadership,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
something else that they've
Yes.
been drawing the line on.
Yes, absolutely. I'm back to bearish too. Kevin?
Same. I was bearish yesterday.
You
We
were.
talked about
You
this
were.
in
You were.
this week. You know, Putin's
Yeah.
not going to agree to anything. I mean,
Yeah.
they got this week-long ceasefire against energy facilities, and as soon as he goes back to bombing them, because that expires on Sunday, according to Dmitry Peskov,
Yep.
Trump is going to be pissed again, because again, he hates to see when innocent people are targeted,
Yeah.
especially when it's 2 degrees or negative.
Yeah, well, what'd be interesting to see if Putin really lives up to what the president says he promised him, which is a week of no bombing in the wake of this extreme cold. If he does, and I heard no reports of bombing yesterday. Maybe there were, and I missed it. But was there bombing, Andre?
Yeah, there was a report
there was.
of a drone strike
Okay.
and a missile strike.
Okay, so he's already violated that, so forget that. Okay, we'll do winners and losers of the week and what to look for, and drop the other topics at least for now, then take your questions. And again, if you want to ask questions about the Fed pick, David will be here to help answer. So with that, Kevin, winner of the week.
So my winner, speaking as a Democrat, was Doug Collins. He's an old friend of mine, sparring buddy. He's the head of the Veterans Administration. Really good guy. He testified before the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, fielded a lot of questions from Democrats on abortion policy and the rollout of reforms. This is a guy that has, he's an 06. He's a former colonel in the Air Force, and I believe strongly in terms of what he's doing. I might get grief from the Democrats, but a lot of people promised to reform the VA, and he's actually doing it, and had a hell of a hearing. Again, we talked about Marco Rubio and how great he was before Senate relations, but I think Secretary Collins really won the day this past week.
It's impossible not to like Doug Collins. Impossible.
Amen.
It's a likable man. Larry, winner of the week.
Great choice. Former podcast host, too, by the way. I love it when podcast hosts.
I was on his podcast. It was a great show.
Yeah.
My winner is Tom Homan. Tom Homan came in and just took charge of everything in Minneapolis and really turned that narrative around by about 180 degrees. And it's kind of funny considering a couple of months ago he was vilified by Democrats, but now they're even sort of embracing his presence in Minneapolis and that press conference.
I also want to remember
that he delivered yesterday. Take a look at this part in particular.
Where were they the last 4 years when the number of women and children sex trafficking went all-time high? Where were they when 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl coming across the border? Where were they when women and children are dying making that journey? Where were they when over 4,000 families making that journey died? Historic record. Where were they? Not a word. Now we're just trying to respond to what happened the last 4 years and keeping this country safe.
It was such a masterful performance in resetting this narrative back to the original problem here, which was the 4 years under Alejandro Mayorkas. And also he brings this level of empathy to caring for the people who are victimized by open borders, those people who are exploited by coyotes and during that horrific crash. A masterful performance. He's hands down the winner.
And I will say too, he made concessions that they don't get everything right all the time too. I think that conciliatory approach, to Larry's point, it was really important as well.
Thanks.
I agree. He's my winner as well. Kevin, loser of the week.
Loser of the week are Republicans in Minnesota. They were all on a high. With Tim Walz saying he wasn't going to run again. Numbers were plummeting with that crisis of corruption in St. Paul. But here comes Amy Klobuchar, released a 4-minute announcement video. She's gonna rule the day, win by double digits in that state, and keep it blue for Team Blue.
Larry, loser of the week.
Dick Durbin. He took to the Senate floor to grandstand over the shooting of Alex Preddy and try to make political hay for it. And I understand all things are fair in politics, but he put up this picture that has been widely ridiculed all week and was discovered easily as an AI-generated photograph, because look at one of the Border Patrol agents. He literally doesn't have a head. And he used that picture as an example of how horrible Border Patrol is, and it was a complete and total fake and fraud, and only a loser would do something like that.
My loser of the week is Guardians of the Status Quo on having the real world effect policy. So many people just want to use Minnesota for political gain, to raise money, to get on cable news, etc. And I think what's happened now is that we're going to have a serious debate about what ICE policy and practice should be. And serious people are discussing it, and there's still politics involved. But those who want to just use this for politics, I think, have lost. Okay, Kevin, what to look for this weekend?
So this is a little inside baseball. It's DC Mardi Gras week going on right now. My voice is a little hoarse already from activities. There's a big party on Saturday. And it'll be interesting to see the delegation at play now, since Julia Letlow announced that she's going to challenge Bill Cassidy, the senior senator from Louisiana. She's got the backing of President Trump. So it'll be interesting, the dynamics at play while everyone is throwing beads and masked up at the Washington Hilton. I will report back some of the dynamics that I see.
Larry?
Interesting. Yes. I'm not allowed to say the snow, but I am looking to see if
No
DC
weather.
can
No weather.
No weather
for this one.
So instead, I'm still watching the funding fight. It's going to go down to the wire on how this thing happens, whether Graham caves or not, and whether they reach a larger deal before on the DHS stuff. Being a DC person, that's what I'm watching.
Okay. Put up my picture. This is, as best I can tell, the last time George W. Bush and Donald Trump were at the same event together, at least known. This is at H.W. Bush's funeral at National Cathedral. This weekend at the Alfalfa dinner, Donald Trump attends for the first time, and I'm told Bush 43 is supposed to be there as well. My only regret is that Barbara Bush won't be there. Because the Secret Service would probably have to hold her back. Anyway, I look forward to hearing about, I'm not going to the dinner, but I look forward to hearing about whatever interactions there are between those two men who don't see eye to eye on everything. All right, a quick word from a sponsor, and then to your questions. Again, raise your hand if you're here on the platform. No smack in the chat. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Right now, if you're having trouble sleeping, here's an opportunity to do something 2 million Americans have done. Bought the products from CB Distillery. Help you sleep better, maybe deal with pain or mood issues. For so many, this works. It's 100% money back guarantee, so why not try it? If you don't like it, you'll send it back. Wake up refreshed. 50% of adults say they'd feel better if they got more sleep. I'm surprised it's only 50%. The product's a CB Distillery natural solution to allow you to sleep better. Premium quality, third-party tested, and free from artificial dyes and fillers. Right now, go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code 2WMM for 25%. That's a full 1/4 off your entire order. Go to cbdistillery.com if you're looking for a way to relax better, sleep better, feel better. Again, over 2 million customers. Go to cbdistillery.com, promo code 2WMM for 25% off. cbdistillery.com, promo code 2WMM. Ladies and gentlemen, time for your questions. If you've got questions about the Fed, we're going to bring David right back in to help answer them. But let's start with what I'm sure will be a Ukraine question from Andre. Andre, welcome in. Thank you for being here. What's on your mind?
I thought I was going to talk about Ed, but sure. Yeah.
You can. Up to you.
Clarify on the hit. So right before President Trump's cabinet meeting where he announced that thing where he called Putin, there was a strike on Zelensky's hometown of Kryvyi Rih where 2 people died. After the attack, after the announcement, there was literally within the hour, there was a drone attack on Zaporizhia. And then today, or within the last 12 hours, there was an attack on a Philip Morris facility in Kharkiv. So notably, that's the kind of thing you can target and send the message. It was an empty facility, but it's something to say, yeah, we're doing this pause, but we can still hit an American company if we want to. It's kind of what every time that Putin talks to Trump, he always hits something just to show him that he can do it. I'm planning to cross over into Ukraine, Mark, a week from today, when the temperature is going to get to a balmy 16. Well, the announcement by Russia and Trump is that we're going to pause until Sunday. Sunday, the temperature drops to -10. That's not wind chill. That's Fahrenheit -10. And that's when the pause is supposed to stop. So generally, most Ukrainians are like, well, of course you're going to pause until then. That's when you were going to strike Ukraine anyway. So things are kind of nasty. And we're probably going to anticipate another strike. What I want to bring up is what, thanks to Professor Kenny on the after show, we got a chance to talk about all the companies that are being mentioned, all this argle-bargle about Europe buying Russian oil. There's also American companies that are helping out. So Joe Wilson, a good representative, sent a letter to the Rogers Corporation in Arizona that their technology, their laminate computer chips are being used by Russian drones. There was a big report about Ubiquity that ends in an I, a corporation that is sending their satellite technology dishes that you can purchase online, and they are not afraid of sending that to Russia, and Russian soldiers are using that to help communicate on the front line. And then third, that's owned by the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies, that corporation. And then thirdly, there is a report that at the beginning of the war, we all may have remembered that Elon Musk was against Starlink being used by Ukrainians for attacks on Russian locations. It's being done in reverse now, and the government of Ukraine is in talks with Elon Musk right now about this to try to stop this, where Russians are actually figured out a way of using Starlink through VPNs and using that to guide their drones on Ukrainian locations. So kind of this, we're complaining about Europe and buying the oil. American corporations are actively helping, and I'm wondering what the response to that is from our distinguished guests about what Congress can do about it.
Yep.
Are we going to hear anything from Trump about this? About, listen, I'm trying to end this war. Why are you guys doing this?
Larry.
Great question. And I think, listen, if he is embarrassed like this, and if it's true that right after the announcement Putin went ahead and did this, yeah, it's going to piss him off even more. We've seen that. I mean, it seems like his escalating rhetoric on Putin always is in connection to him either being devastated over seeing images of people dying, and or him being pissed off about being humiliated or sort of taunted on the world stage. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened, unless somebody talked him off the ledge and said, no, we're still talking.
Larry. Kevin.
Andre, great questions. One comment and one favor. Let's also not forget the sanctions bill in the Senate, right? That's still on the back burner. We'll see what happens if, I'm obviously in total support of it. And maybe with Lindsey Graham at the center of this funding situation, maybe he works something out to get some action on that front. The favor I'd ask is, while you're on the ground in Ukraine, if you could send some of their plows. We've sent a lot of resources to that great country. If you could help us in D.C. by sending some of those snow plows back to us, that would be great, because they understand actually how to deal with snow and ice.
Do that, but also please stay safe, and also please file for us.
Exactly right.
Call in anytime. Grateful to you. What's the time difference now?
7 hours.
7 hours. All right. So before you sit down to dinner,
my morning hits in Ukraine 9 o'clock. I know is there or 4 p.m. broadcast.
Right. Thank you, sir.
If you were going there on a covert mission to assassinate a top Russian general, would you tell us?
There'd be body language. There'd be
he's gone.
Eye blinks. Yeah, I
noticed. He just disappeared on that.
No, I took him out. I took him out. All right. I'm just making sure. I want to show you one thing. We skipped over, but I just want to show it. There's this big thing today of people protesting around Minnesota, around the country, protesting ICE. This is the second one they've done. You're supposed to walk out. I just want to show you a bunch of people are promoting it. Pearl Jam's promoting it. Code Pink's promoting it. Here's Graham Plattner, the Democratic candidate for Senate in Maine, promoting today's event. 118, please.
Hey everyone, tomorrow, January 30th, is a national day of action in opposition to ICE and support of the people of Minneapolis. Here in Maine, there are a couple opportunities to get involved. I hope those of you that can join your fellow Mainers in displaying solidarity with everyone across the country who is resisting ICE.
Kevin, thoughts on that?
He's going to raise a lot more money. Obviously, I think he's raised already $5 million as part of this. Janet Mills is actually working on this and was able to secure some agreements with the administration to get ICE out of Maine, along with Susan Collins. But again, it's good politics for Graham,
Larry?
at least in a primary.
It was a better video in the original German when he delivered it, but sure, that's a terrific. Here's the thing about this. When you look at that and you scroll all of those Instagram videos and TikTok videos, all using the same script, all calling for the same thing, it reinforces the fact that none of this really seems organic. It seems organized, it seems funded, it seems planned, and it seems like a political operation, which people on my side of the equation get angry and at the very least skeptical about whether we should take it serious. It's just the latest outrage that's now been turned into Democratic politics.
Good for them for being organized. I'm told now by one person who's close to the situation that there won't be an Warsh Trump event at the White House today. That the announcement, the president said he'd announce it today, will simply be what the president put on Truth Social. So for those of you interested in Kevin's hella good hair, you'll have to go on YouTube and watch some old.
Just stay on this program right now.
Or just stay right here for other Kevin's hella good hair. Anyway, there's that. All right, more questions
leave
now.
hair out of it, shall we?
Yeah, more questions now. Colleen, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Kevin and for Larry. And
Colleen also has great hair.
Thank you. Hi, guys. Good morning. Hi, Mark.
And a great scarf.
Colleen from Long Island. I was just thinking, I mean, I'm a Democrat, but I'm a more moderate Democrat. And I think the Democrats are overplaying their hand with ICE. It's just, when I hear commentators saying, oh, ICE was using the child as bait, everybody knows, I mean, most people realize that's not true. And demonizing ICE, like Amy Klobuchar telling them to get out of Minnesota, and Hakeem Jeffries, in my opinion, comes across as weak. It's just, I think, they should continue to focus on what the American people want and stop they're escalating this on purpose. As we were saying, they're politicizing it, and it's going to backfire. And it's not what overall, I just can't believe. I'm a Democrat and I sympathize with the victims, but I also sympathize with the ICE agents. Yeah. It's a hard job what they're doing. All right. And, I mean, I have a law enforcement in my family, and I know most law enforcement people do not wake up every morning thinking, I want to kill someone today, or I want to cause harm, or, it's just, I think it's going to backfire, and I wish they would grow up, the Democrats, and start focusing on an agenda and a policy and what they're going to do for the people. It's kind of embarrassing, in my opinion.
All right, Colleen, thank you for that. Larry, then Kevin. Thank you, Colleen.
I agree with Colleen. I do think that this is sort of where the power and momentum and fundraising for the party has been for 10 years now, from outrage to outrage to outrage. But even David Axelrod yesterday said that this whole defund, dismantle, and eliminate ICE narrative is just as damaging and will hurt them just as much as when it was defund the police. I don't know if they're listening, though. That's a question for Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, Colleen, it's a great point that you make. I had that fear too of this kind of overplaying. I always keep an eye on the general elections, and this obviously isn't going to. Maybe it's helpful in some people's primaries, and Mark just played the video from Graham in Maine, but certainly not helpful come November. I would encourage everyone to watch Governor Josh Shapiro's appearance with Brett Baer last night, where he threaded the needle really well on this and spoke out very clearly against the local DA on the ground in Philly that has been over the top with his rhetoric, comparing folks to Nazis and the Gestapo and things like that. And he can point to actual real results working with law enforcement to tackle violent crime, not demonizing people on either side, the protesters or our law enforcement.
I agree with Kevin. Shapiro's been at his very best on this topic, and there's some research that suggests his approach is the one that's most resonant. Colleen, thank you. Let me get in a quick one last sponsor, and then we'll go back to you all. This is from our friends at Ethos. If you don't have life insurance, if you're the big breadwinner in your family and you don't currently have life insurance, you need it. Ethos is an online platform that allows you to get life insurance, and you can do it in minutes. Ethos makes it easy, doesn't require any medical exam, just answer a few health questions and a few other questions. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get a quote for up to $3 million of coverage. Get a free quote by going to ethos.com/mark, ethos.com/mark, and fill out the application. This will protect your family in the event of tragedy, allow you to make sure that they can pay their bills, their mortgage, their rent, college tuition, other major expenses. Again, if you're the breadwinner and you haven't done this, you need to. This is not a complicated process. It can take as little as 10 minutes to get up to $3 million in coverage. Go to ethos.com/Mark to get your free quote today, ethos.com/Mark. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Mike, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Kevin and for Larry.
Good morning. Am I unmuted?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Walling, I am on Team Kevin for the permanent slot, but you pushed a button for me.
Check is in the mail, Mike. Check is in the mail.
Okay. I'm looking for it. You pushed a button for me on Wednesday when you were on with Hogan that I'd like to talk to you about. 40% of Americans still can't afford a $500 unexpected bill, so that gap is still real. Does that sound like you?
Yes, that's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not. It's not real. It's hands up, don't shoot, not real. The source is the annual Federal Reserve survey of economic well-being of U.S. households. The question that is in the survey reads: suppose that you have an emergency expense that costs $400. Based on your current financial situation, how would you pay for this expense? Not could you afford it, how would you pay for it? Of the available answers, 43% answered cash, 38% said they would use a card and then pay it off at the end of the month. That brings us to 81%. Another 15% said they'd use a card and finance it. So that brings us to 96%. The reason you end up with over 100% is because they allowed multiple choice answers. The one answer that reads, I wouldn't be able to pay the expense right now, is the answers were 13%.
Okay, so Mike, let me stop you there.
Sure.
First of all, Kevin is not the only one who uses this statistic. Right?
That's my point.
But Mike, Kevin, you probably don't know where it comes from, and I wouldn't blame you for not knowing because it is so widely repeated. But do you have a different source for that statistic, Kevin?
No, Mike, I appreciate you doing the research on that. I would just say, what the percentage that you shared of folks that could pay cash right in that immediate moment.
43%.
I think what percentage was that?
43.
43. So then the rest of it have to finance, whether it be on a credit card.
No, Kevin, that's not the question.
Yeah, understand. They say they pay it off.
Not can you? How would you?
Yeah, Mike. How do you know that people are using that data set as opposed to some other?
Because if you go back to some of the various news stories that are written up about this, they will refer to the Federal Reserve study,
right.
and they do it every year. They use the same questions.
And Mike, do you have a theory, or have you seen anybody explain why this mistake was made initially?
I mean, if you listen to people like Dominic Pino or Scott Lincecum, people from AEI, this comes up. This is not an unknown thing.
Yeah.
But as you said, Mark, Yemisi has used the same thing.
Yeah. Larry, do you know about this or have a theory?
I took it from Yemisi. Then I'm going to blame my friend Yemisi.
He heard it from Yemisi. I think the secret in Mike's explanation here is that it's not used as a mistake because he compared it to hands up, don't shoot, where very early on in the game in Ferguson, we knew that hands up, don't shoot had not happened. But it gets continued to repeat it over and over and over again, becomes part of the lexicon of political activists 100%. Because it's effective, and so that it's not a mistake. It's
well, it is a mistake. It is a mistake. It is a mistake for some.
No. What I mean, you said who originally used this as a mistake. Yeah. When it's originally put out, it is used to these kind of stats and these kind of talking points are used deceptively, in my opinion. I
hear you, but I do wonder how it started, right? Because if somebody wants to do this as a fake, it's a weird thing to say. Well, we're just going to look at this data, make up what it says, and start to cite it. That seems like a bad con job, right?
Well, I mean, only if people like Mike go in and research it and get to the bottom of it. But sadly, it gets repeated over and over again in the media.
That part I get. I get the repeated part. I don't get the origin.
There are 8 possible answers, and you can go through and cherry pick your percentages to match basically what Kevin and Yemisi and
got it from Yemisi.
Yemisi. Mike, what year was this? What year was the study?
They do it every year. They do it every year. There was so the numbers that I just gave you are from last year's analysis.
Yeah.
There's a 2019 Cato analysis that said that the totals came up to 143,
Yeah. Right.
not 100%.
Mike, did you debunk this yourself, or you got this from Cato or somebody else?
I've heard this again through conservative sources, economic sources. If I don't know if Bonson is still on, but I'd love it if he popped in, because I'm sure he's aware of this.
David, are you aware of all this brouhaha?
I certainly am, but he already said the names that are most important here. When you start talking about Dominic Pino and Scott Litzicombe pointing it out, you have as credible and authoritative as sources as we have, and they've done yeoman's work on this. So yes, Dominic is extremely bright. Scott's written about it as well. Great resources.
Mike, thank you. Thank you for bringing it up, and a great example of something that is kind of inexplicable. David, thank you for being here. I'm assuming we had no Fed questions because you explained it perfectly at the top.
That's right.
Grateful to you. Thank you, David. And thanks to Kevin and Larry for being here.
Looking forward, by the way, to Jerome Powell's new Substack crossover he's going to do with Don Lemon. This is going to be amazing.
It's getting a lot of play in the chat. Getting a lot of play in the chat.
Tonight at 5 Eastern time, there's no live episode of Two Way tonight, but an episode we recorded yesterday with Amy Parnes and Alex Castellano and Noemi. Somebody will tell me Nomi's last name. Blanking on it.
Starts with a K, right? Noemi
Kunz. Thank you, Noemi Kunz. Thank you. Again, don't take it personally. I can't remember names at my age. Anyway, the four of us talked about the 2028 presidential campaign, a lot deep dive on J.D. Vance and his public image and his connection to people in the party, as well as whether Gavin Newsom and Governor Shapiro are still the front runners, and remarkably down on Governor Shapiro. I was really interested in the power they think that the issue of Israel will have for him in the context of the nomination. So I recommend that episode to you. 5 o'clock Eastern time. If you haven't yet listened to Next Up, my conversations with Rich Lowry and Debbie Dingle, that's also available to you now on YouTube and as a podcast. Michael Moynihan tonight, 7 Eastern time, the Moynihan Report. His guest is the great Colby Hall, the founding editor of Mediaite. Join Michael and Colby tonight at 7 o'clock live. Yeah, wow. friend of yours.
I go way back with Colby.
And I had something else I wanted to talk to you guys about, even though we're well over time. Anybody think of what it is? I don't know. Anyway,
we're doing a second hour just on Don Lemon, aren't we?
Yes, and now we roll into it now. Second hour of Don Lemon. Grateful to Larry and Kevin for being here again, and we will see you Monday morning.
I'm joining Professor Kenny and folks.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So the conversation continues.
The conversation does continue. We're delaying that. Kevin is joining the
as long as Mike doesn't get on and fact check me correctly again, as he did so well.
Probably be safe.
It's Yemisi's fault.
Yeah. Anyway,
exactly right.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks to you all for being part of the Two Way community. Again, watch the episode tonight and back live as news warrants with breaking two ways, but also Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day, a good weekend.
Have a great